couldn't do that. Why aren't you like your brother? All those kind of guilt, you call it guilt tripping. But then you go deeper to the perinatal level, and there is a pocket of guilt that opens. And you have it in mythology. The primal sin in Christianity is loss of the garden of, loss of paradise, and God actually points specifically to labor pain. In pain and sorrow shalt thou bring forth children. So there are different reasons that people give you why they. Oh, okay. One of the most sensible explanation that I heard from people why there should be so much guilt associated with birth is when you become aware of how much pain was inflicted on you, how much you suffered. Something in you is telling you there has to be a reason. This cannot be a universe where terrible things can happen without any reason. But if there is reason, I must have done something terrible, even if I don't remember it. People free themselves from guilt as they bring this pain into consciousness and they work it through. Yeah. Now we're finally moving to the third matrix. It's not much hope, but there's a little hope here now. Again, the contractions are represented as these predatory birds, and there is a way out. And this is now where the energy really is coming out. Freud wrote a book, Mourning and Melancholia, where he basically said that behind depression is aggressive energy, but you turn it against yourself. The extreme of aggression is murder. The extreme of depression is also murder. You kill yourself. So it's really in the second matrix, all the energy that is generated as a response to the choking and that is kind of trying to get out but cannot. So it's within that closed system is really introjected. And so in this kind of work, when you start, if you are depressed and you start getting access to aggression, this is the beginning of the healing of depression. You want to find channels for that energy. So you can see this is like the second and third combined. There's still the confinement of the second matrix, but the energy is now kind of getting through in a kind of explosive way. It's more Giger. Okay, this is a third matrix combination. There's nothing else that can bring these kinds of things together. So you have a war, you have a helmet, you have death, you have these skulls, you have violence, you have the fangs, and then you have sex in it, you have phallic images. Again, Giger. So you have, the boa constrictor, you have the death, it's demonic, you feel attacked, there's aggression. There's the spiritual in there, but it's in the form that we would interpret as blasphemy. So before moving out of this kind of realm fully into the spiritual, you can get strange mixture, as we will see, of the spiritual and this kind of a heavy-duty, biology, demonic images and so on. And that's where something like Sabbath of the Witches comes in, archetype, or Black Mass rituals and so on. You have seen Polanski's, the Rosemary Baby, those kinds of images. Here again the same. The boa constrictor, snake loops are a little better drawn, and the sexual element is more expressed. Now this is Giger's now image of a kind of Kali image. You can see that he makes connection with the world of mechanical gadgets. His art is called biomechanoid. Again, birth is something that's very anatomical, it's happening in the human body, but there is a mechanical element. I worked with people who, after reliving birth, said, I've been through the meat grinder today. Or another patient I remember identified with Charlie Chaplin in Modern Times, when he's caught in this in this machine, and it's got to pull through. So he puts these gadgets that can hurt. Now this is, I mentioned this sexual element, but this is the kind of sexuality that could sort of come in this matrix. Okay. This is all Giger. Now this is not. You see, this is not sexuality like you would become Romeo and with Juliet, sort of, and you have this wonderful relationship, sort of intellectual connection, spiritual connection. You really love each other, and you walk somewhere in the mountains and meadow. There is, creek, buttercups, snow on the mountains, and you end up making love in a forest of birch trees. I mean, you get heavy-duty images here. You get Soho, kind of the sexual underworld. You get sex mixed with violence, sex mixed with dirt, and so on. Criminal sex. You can have images of rapes at this point, and so on. So Giger really expresses that. And some people appreciate that, and other people just, think he's completely perverted. I mean, what is this about? But until and unless we realize that something like this could be in each of us, again, we don't have a realistic picture of what the problem is in the world. So again, you can see this is like a Kali kind of image, and then below her you can see the head in a vise, which is, again, allusion to birth. On the left side, the hairdo is skeletal, so you have death. You have this Baphomet, the demonic figure, and then these fetuses that are phallic, but there's also, he also brought death in it, because you can't have any more danger for a fetus than a condom. So he made, condoms as fetuses. There's another one. Okay. Now this is then a real medieval image of the Sabbath of the witches. So this is where people, if they had really bad birth, and then they would take a high dose of psychedelic sessions, those are the kinds of images that would come. Walpurgis night. This is actually Sabbath of the Witches in Blocksberg, which was the famous place. If you read Goethe's Faust, in the second volume, there is the Walpurgis night where he meets Helen of Troy. So these are some images from psychedelic sessions where this whole archetype sort of comes through. Yeah. You see this blasphemy there, blasphemy in Sabbath of the Witches. These are children playing with toads in puddles of holy water. They are dressing them in the color that is the cardinal's robe, and this is monstrance here. So this is area where the blasphemy comes from. So you are in the third matrix, okay? You're dealing with violence. There's a violent energy. There's all this distorted sexual energy. There is a kind of like atmosphere of sacrifice and so on. Scatology in the Sabbath of the Witches. You have the diabolic feast where they take in all kinds of materials which normally are unpalatable, disgusting, and so on. And that whole scene is not experienced as some kind of perverted orgy. This is like the offering to the dark side of the universe. There's a lot of literature showing that what was happening in Nazi concentration camps very likely were, those had something to do with black magic type of thing. That this was not just an ordinary situation. I don't want to get into this, but you get an idea. So this is Claude Vitruy. This is a French painter, and this is called Mon Tombeau, My Tomb. So in the right lower corner, you can see a tombstone with a vaginal opening. So this is again birth, death, sex together. Above is a tomb of it says Leopold Masoch. They give name to masochism. You know, naked woman on a tombstone, again sex, death. Another one naked in a coffin playing with her breast. Then you have on the other side you have a naked woman embracing a phallic tombstone. It's violence, severed head, whips, you know, and scatology. You have the toad and the salamander there, and blasphemy. You know, look what he did with the nuns, naked nuns. You know, one of them sticking their breasts through the bars, and are very frivolous with a cigarette and so on. And this is the ultimate. You can see where the monstrance is planted. In our culture, this is the ultimate. I mean, it wouldn't be in Egypt, you know, where the sun god at the moment of rebirth is a scarab, which is basically a pile of excrement, and inside is the egg. And for them it's very sacred, because the egg is the beginning of life and the excrement is end of life, and the whole thing is a spiritual statement. But a lot of these satanic things, they come from the deep level of this kind of unconscious. I don't know if it was in Europe, but in the United States we had a period like 5 years ago where a lot of patients started bringing up these kinds of images of being victims in some satanic ritual. It was discussed, and the FBI was looking for the corpses, and they didn't realize that to have these kinds of images, you haven't had to be a victim in a ritual. That there's an archetypal thing that you can encounter. Becomes a major problem on the spiritual journey, because people don't want to go there, because they think that to experience it makes you bad, makes you evil. Whereas it's the opposite. You just want to let that stuff, you know, pass through you, because that's where it's coming out. You're purging yourself from that. It's not a statement about you being a bad person. It's just it has something to do with how you came into the world and how the archetypes were sort of involved in it. Here Giger saw, how are we doing? Giger saw in Köln, he saw a garbage collection and became fascinated by this. As you can see, it got sort of erotic elements for him. It's also death, because it's end of the life process, and then he saw also the ovens in the crematoria, and it became like a really powerful object for him. This is encounter with Kali in the last moment, coming out. So you can see the head of the child coming out of Kali's vagina, and then the adult in the upper corner surrendering to the power of the feminine. And she is Mahakali. She's not Kali, is one of the many gods in the pantheon. In Hindu mythology, the idea is that the universe rests on a turtle, and then there are 9 elephants, and so she has them all as a shashlik, and she is the boss. You see, so in Tantra, you have only 2 characters. There is Shiva, who is basically passive, unlike the masculine in our culture, and then you have Mahashati, Mahakali. She is the generating force. When you go to Kali temples in India, they paint a male figure on the threshold so that it's stepped on. It's like if you go to bow to Great Mother Goddess, it's not time for some macho nonsense, you know. You are dealing with a really formidable force. The original was Hokusai, but my client from Prague brought it and says, you know, that this is where I was. You can see the octopus, but it's not strangling, it's not killing. Now it's more like a bondage syndrome. This is related to the sexual practices where people want to be confined, contained somehow. I love this one. She called it the flagellant, showing in the third matrix you can get to a place where you cannot tell whether it's agony or ecstasy. It's kind of all, you get off the scale. And so she said it could have been cosmic orgasm or galactic vivisection. And so you're supposed to be able to see this from one perspective as like an open wound, torn tissue, but also like a pattern on a beautiful Persian rug. Can you get that? The ambiguity in it, yeah. This is the one that I was talking about when I talk about the castration complex. Great one. This is Giger again. This was supposed to be the staircase to the Harkonnen castle. You can see as far as he got to heaven. You know, it's like going to heaven, but you can see the danger of being killed, being hurt, and the masterful morphing from symbols of death into phallic, sex and death kind of coming together. You have the snake, but at this point it's not the snake pit anymore, no exit, but it's kind of opening up. And here, this was a patient who had really very, very low self-image, and suddenly she discovered a very positive area in her psyche that she was not aware of, represented by a growing embryo and a sprouting seed. But this snake, the old part of the personality, is still threatening it. She's not quite sure about it. And this is a more powerful opening of the same person. The lower part, she said, was like a quagmire or like a swamp of my unconscious. And this is now the opening. This is the moment of birth. And she represented herself as a little princess. So this for Jung would be, Jung has a child king archetype. So this would be child queen archetype. And you know that the obstetricians talk about crowning when the head comes out. It's a very shamanic kind of a picture of the shaman's journey. This is the same. Here you can see the person in two forms. One is the adult who is having the experience, and the other one is the inner child that she connected with through regression. So this shows the tremendous advantages of this kind of work, because you can be there in two roles. You go back and you experience what happened to you as a child, but now you're an adult who can understand certain things that the child couldn't understand. You can tolerate it, you know why you go there, and so on. So, it probably wouldn't hurt you very much if you saw the primal scene, if you would regress to a situation where you saw your parents in intercourse. It would not be a very pleasant experience, but you could handle it as an adult. Okay, now we talk about the swallowing, the engulfment. This is the other side. Now feeling regorged, and there is an interesting situation that happens. Sometimes people suddenly find themselves like in Rio, in a carnival or Mardi Gras. And for some time I couldn't understand what that was. And then finally I got it. This is a situation where previously repressed energies, aggressive and sexual, are now sort of being released, and you might have thought that you were dying, and now you already know that you have made it, but you still work on some leftovers. And that's the point of the carnival. Once in a year, you can let it all hang out. Like if you go to Rio, to the carnival, these very proper South American women just walk into the street, just with a little triangle in their crotch, bare-chested. The plastic surgeons make a lot of money just before the carnival because women want to have their breasts, fixed. And it's a rowdy scene. People do all kinds of things that normally would not be allowed. There's a lot of images of death. People have T-shirts with death skulls and so on, but it's not to be scared. It's a celebration, sort of letting go and so on. So that's where you would get this kind of imagery. If you know James Ensor, he was a painter who really capitalized on this. Climbing the mountain is a very powerful spiritual symbol. Since we are in Italy, the Divina Commedia, that you have Dante at 35, and he sees the mountain, which becomes the symbol of spiritual ascent, and he wants to go there, but there's a heavy forest that's separating him, and Virgil shows up and says, to get out there you have to go down, and then you have the 9 circles of hell, and then Satan in the puddle of his frozen blood, and then they pass, and then they were going down to hell, now they are climbing. Purgatorio is a mountain, so they climb, and then they come to the earthly paradise, and then the mystical rows of angels, and then Hieros Gamos, that connection with Beatrice. Joseph Campbell gave these incredible talks on Dante's Divine Comedy, where he said, this is this timeless, fantastic, timeless map of the spiritual transformation. But then he says, but spiced with provincial gossip. Okay, because as they go there and see people in hell and different punishments, he recognizes his neighbors and he tells the stories why they are there. So there's this. The basic archetypal matrix is to reach the heavenly sphere, the mystical rows of angels. You have to go down. It gets heavy, heavy, heavy. It's like a spiral that's getting narrower and narrower, and then you sort of get out of there, and then you climb the mountain, and then there is there's the heavenly realm. That's the basic map of of transformation, but Dante kind of spiced it up a little. I worked with mountain climbers who realized that their passion for climbing mountain and actually seeing the sunrise from the mountain was a surrogate for birth. When they had the experience of birth, they said, "This is what I really wanted. I didn't want to climb mountains; too dangerous." Fire, purifying fire. At this point, some people can have images from past lives being burned at a stake and things like that, passing through purifying fire. This is the last second before being born. This patient would say, she's in a horizontal position. This is the birth canal. Behind the screen is the outer world. The triangle is where the head is breaking through. Then you have these oranges, yellows, and reds representing the explosive energies that go into that last moment. This is where a lot of people don't want to go because it feels like death. You are now facing the ego death. You are going from this immense compression to a place where there are no boundaries and feels like death. When you are just stepped from a phenomenal liberation, people mistake it for mortal danger. So this is where you have to do a lot of explanation and give a lot of support. The images that can come, you can see atomic bomb explosions. I've seen people experiencing the genie in the bottle, and suddenly comes out and sort of offering you all these great gifts. The archetype of cornucopia belongs there. You have this kind of opening, and then sort of all kinds of things come. And of course, you don't get treasures, but you get a totally different perception of the world. It's like this is again the final moment, and this is experienced as Moloch. The destruction comes from Moloch. This was a deity that in ancient Israel and also Carthage was worshipped. They made metal hollow sculptures, they made big fire, and they sacrificed newborn children. They were throwing it into the flames. So that's that sort of archetypal image. So you can see it as Moloch with the fire in the belly, but you can also see it as a head of the child coming through the birth canal, and these claws represent the pain. And you can see the resolution now. The body is still in fire, and the head is now emerging into this heaven of a great mother goddess, which is a peacock heaven again. She has a dark complexion, so she could be Saraswati. I mean, there are deities like that. Phoenix, seeing Phoenix, or even identifying with Phoenix, is a perfect image. Dying in fire, and then something new is being born, and you're making a spiritual connection, flying to the cosmic sun. Dismemberment at this point. We talk about shamans. This is actually from our Italian training, dismembriamento. I have some images where people experienced it in a shamanic context. This is the ego death experience as being torn by a pack of wolves. This is exactly what you find in shamanic cultures. They have these initiatory animals, like in South America it would be jaguar. In the Haida people, the Kwakiutl people, the American Northwest grizzly is that kind of. Among the Inuit Eskimo, it could be wolves or bears and so on. So you basically are devoured by that animal, and then you incorporate the power of that animal. The animal becomes your spirit helper, becomes your nagual. This was a woman in our workshop at Esalen. She didn't know anything about Siberian shamanism, and of course the swan, is the powerful Siberian bird, the power bird. And I promised the resolution of that, where was the mummy, the big spider and the mummy. This was from our training. She was born in Prague, but she lives in the States. And she suffered, when she came into the training, she suffered from a phobia of heights. And for her, as you can see, reaching the light he has to experience what she's most afraid of, fall. And I don't have time to explain, what the connection is, but many people experience the final stages of birth as something related to fall. It's you connect with gravity at that point for the first time. It could be a real fall, like if you see a giraffe delivering, it's quite a fall. In cultures that don't have obstetricians, women would not dream about delivering on their back. So that's a good position for an obstetrician, not for a delivering woman. So they would do it squatting or something that has a very nasty name, à la vache, on all four, like a cow, or hanging from a tree, like Queen Maya supposedly delivered the Buddha standing, or hanging. When you are helping, the gravitation is helping the delivery. Or they would do belly dances were sort of developed, to help birth. Hawaiians have their dances and so on. So suddenly there was a coex where suddenly we were liberated by the Red Army after the Second World War, and so the soldiers stayed in our homes for several days, and she was a little baby, and the soldiers